All right. I'm going to introduce Tomas. First time meeting you in person. I've heard a lot about you from Brian. So Tomas is the general partner and founder of Theory Ventures, hosting this event. Thank you. It's an early stage venture capital firm investing in data, AI, and Web3. Previously, Tom led 9 unicorn investments as a managing director at Redpoint. He writes a blog at tomtungs.com. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. That drives millions of views a month. It's actually a really popular blog. A lot of people I know read it. Before becoming an investor, he was a product manager at Google, managing a $1 billion business unit on the AdSense team. So we're excited to talk to Tom. In addition to being a VC, he is actually an avid coder. You might think, oh, he's a VC. He doesn't know how to code. Why is he talking? You're going to be surprised. I've seen like a small teaser of it. I haven't seen any of the demos from any of the people. This is going to be me reacting and asking questions in real time. But what I saw really shocked me. And I think it'll shock you too. So, Tom's personal AI tool stack includes, a lot of CLI-based things. He has over 50 custom LLM tools that is used for day-to-day work, and for consuming content, writing email, and all kinds of other stuff. I don't want to give it away. Hand it over to Tom.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for coming. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to demo a simple tool that I built.
I like that, how you just went straight to the terminal.
I love the terminal. What this does is I don't have time to listen to all the podcasts that I want. So I have a list of 40 podcasts that are stored in an XML, in a text file. And what this does is it literally goes through every single podcast, downloads it, transcribes it, puts it through Whisper, does named entity extraction on the people and the themes in that podcast. And then it summarizes all of the podcasts that come in every day, generates a PDF, sends it to my Kindle so I can read it on the way to work. And then it checks for all of the startup names that are early stage companies to see whether they exist within our CRM.
Okay, so let me just stop you for a second.
Okay.
So how many podcasts are we talking about?
Well, there's a list of 40 of them right now.
Okay.
And so there's each of them publishes a week, so it's 4 to 5 a day.
And how does consuming that information help you?
Well, people will say a lot of stuff on podcasts that they won't say elsewhere.
Okay.
Right? So they'll give you little facts, or they might tell you about a company that they're really interested in because the presenter of the podcast asked a particular question that nobody else had asked them. And so the idea is that there's some investing alpha that's stored within these podcasts, but listening to 40 podcasts a week is not possible. And then listening to 100 podcasts, so let's say a bunch of other people start podcasts. How do you scale information extraction from podcasts? And there's 2 parts to it. The first is we all have to be relevant and have fun stuff to talk about, a cocktail conversation. And the second is there's actually real information for our business at Theory that needs to be incorporated into our systems.
So what does, do you feel that has kind of come to fruition, you are getting alpha out of these podcasts?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, the amount of, I don't know, it'll find 5 startups per day that are net new to the system through this. The summary of the transcripts have different components to it. So the first section is what are the 3 or 4 main themes? And then the prompt asks for individual interesting quotes that substantiate that underlying theme. There's a Peter Thiel bot that will ask, asks what's a contrarian point of view within this podcast? And then the last section is what are some new, we're very research oriented as a firm. And so what are some new research projects that we should consider as a result of what people said in here? And so that stuff is useful. And so instead of listening to 40 hours of podcasts a week, I can read that email in 15 minutes a day and get most of the benefit. There's obviously some loss, but it really saves me a lot of time.
Okay, one question that I want to hold up the demo is, are there any podcasts that are so valuable that even though you're compressing it and getting this you're digesting this information, you just find yourself going back and listening to that podcast?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And what ends up happening for those is you'll start reading the transcript through. You launch Claude Code, point it towards the transcript summary, where it knows there's a tool for this. And then you start asking it questions like, okay, what did Mark Andreessen say there? Or what did Brian Bischoff say on this podcast. You go back and forth and back and forth. And then the great part is you can kick off a web search. Like, okay, I heard that perspective on reinforcement fine-tuning. What's the research coming out of Berkeley on this topic? Aggregate it all. And then there's a little tool for Asana where I can create a task and say, create a task with the summary of the research, assign it to me, make it due tomorrow. And then I'll go back and I won't forget about it.
Oh, interesting. So do you end up listening at all, or do you interact with it through this?
Never.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Interesting.
No, it takes so much time to listen. Who has that amount of time?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so what are we seeing on the screen here?
Well, so what it's done is it's gone through 3 episodes. It's successfully sent a summary email to me. It sent a PDF to my Kindle. And actually, typically it finds 2 or 3 startups to add to the CRM. So it's done that in about 2 minutes. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking the podcast, downloading it locally, running Whisper locally to save on the transcription, running it on the GPU. And then I take the full transcript, run it through a local large language model to eliminate all of like the ums and the uhs, all of the filler words, to shrink the input, because the volume of input is really what drives 80 to 90% of the costs for a lot of these large language models. And so you can condense it, and then you send it to a large language model. I'm using Claude Sonnet to then actually run through the prompt for the extraction. And then after it's identified those entities, then it kicks off another tool to integrate with the CRM.
And are you kicking off a remote process? Or are you doing this on your laptop?
I do it locally now. I haven't put it on the server yet, but yeah, it's all local.
Very cool. All right. So you have this the CLI. So what does it look like to use it? Or
well, so a lot of it is behind the scenes, right? Because it's adding companies into our CRM, and then there's a digest, there's a summary of all these, and I can show you one.
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
This is not the tool set that I expected from a VC partner.
Your VC doesn't use a command line based
No.
email client?
Yeah, I don't have VC, but yeah.
So here's a podcast digest. So this podcast, let's go to one that has a bit more context. So I'll show you. So this is the 20-minute VC with Harry Stebbings. And so formatting here is not great, but you can see the opening context is you've got, let's see, it's Harry with Rory and Jason, and they have the CEO of Canva on. And then the next section are the main discussion segments. So I asked it to cut it up in 5 to 15-minute chunks. So the first topic is the analysis of Anthropic's raise. Here are the key arguments. While the valuation is massive, the multiple is actually reasonable. Growth rate's staggering. And these are all quotes. These are direct quotes. And then each of the different sections. So here's another segment, which is the secondary round. And again, the key arguments that exist there, key data points that exist. The third section is AI M&A analysis. And so there are typically 3 to 4 sections per podcast. And so you can read and get a sense of like, here's what's going on with the StatSig acquisition with OpenAI. And so it goes through all the different segments. This is a really long episode. And then there's a conclusion and synthesis section, which is, okay, this is what it all means. This is the future call to action, the final memorable quote. So Rory, for any of you know him, he's a bombastic Irishman. He's really funny. And he says, you just got to look yourself in the mirror and say, that's the tax you pay for being stupid. So you can hear these quotes, right? You get a sense of the personality coming out of the podcast. And then here are a bunch of the companies that were mentioned. So Anthropic and Canva, StatSig. It classifies the company. Is it an early stage or a late stage company? Is it potential to be an investment for us? It identifies key people. So are there people in the ecosystem that we should know that suddenly pop up, right? So some podcast might mention a new researcher who has a new reinforcement fine-tuning.
And if you want to ask a question about something you're reading here, do you have?
No, so then you have to go in the Claude Codes. You can't do it in the email client, unfortunately. And then here are a bunch of investment themes that it has identified.
It's probably an Emacs nerd somewhere that would say, oh, like make a plugin thing right here.
Well, you can do it in Vim. You can do Vim.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But here are a bunch of investment themes that they've identified. Here's the Peter Thiel contrarian takes on the overall invest, and that's it. And so 4 to 5 podcasts per day, and there's a lot of information extraction that comes for it, and it costs about 10 to 15 cents per day to run.
Interesting. Okay, that's really interesting. So you're consuming 40 podcasts a week?
Yeah, I don't know how often they publish, but
Okay.
it's a list of 40 podcasts. Yeah.
Do you think this is going to change like how content is created? Like, why should anyone listen to the podcast? And then like, do you think people are going to try to think of ways to like entice you to listen to the podcast?
I do. I think the vast majority of content will probably be machine created and then machine read. Yeah.
Okay.
And then every once in a while you hear something interesting. And so the importance of the hook, like the very first sentence or the bombastic quote or the hot take, will become so important, because that's the thing that will get you to read and say, I want to learn more about that, or I want to learn more about that. Otherwise, you'll just be sifting through it. Because like you think about like the signal to noise ratio within like a Lex Friedman 3-hour podcast. I mean, I'm sure he asks excellent questions.
Yeah.
But you can compress that and still get most of the value.
Definitely. Okay. This is really cool. Is this something that other people on your team use? Is like more personal to you? Or?
Right now it's more personal.
Okay.
But we'll see if we can roll it out. Yeah.
Maybe we can open source it?
I have open sourced something else, which is a blog generator. And it uses an evolutionary algorithm. So I was reading a paper actually from Berkeley about, it's called evolutionary algorithms for code generation. So you put in a prompt, whatever, create a vibe-coded app, and you have 3 or 4 different algorithms produce their iteration of a vibe-coded app, and then you use an LLM as a judge to figure out what are the characteristics of each iteration that work really well, and then you loop through it until you hit a certain threshold, and then that's what the human reviews. And so that is open source, and there's a great library called DSPY, which allows you to parameterize the prompts, and actually it will run through and optimize the prompts yourself. And so the evolutionary algorithm plus the DSPY component produces really good AI-generated blog posts. I've only published one, and it was by accident because Claude Code pushed to GitHub when it wasn't supposed to. And then the best part about it was that somebody wrote me an email and said, did you write this with AI? But they weren't sure. And so that tells me like it's actually, it's pretty close. Like it's still not human, but it's pretty close.
And how are you using that? Are you using it to create drafts that you edit?
That's right.
Okay.
So I'll give it a prompt, and then it uses a LanceDB vector database search. It runs RAG over the 2,000 blog posts that I've written, uses that as additional context, plus like a 2 or 3 paragraph prompt that I've dictated. And then that's more expensive. That's like $1, $1.50 per run, because there's so many different models. And then that gets you a draft of about 85% of the way there. But it sounds like a machine wrote it, and then you have to go and humanize it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to show? I don't want to block
No.
your...
That's my demo. We should let others demonstrate the magic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Greg Ceccarelli is here. Greg is a longtime friend of mine, but I'm still going to read his introduction from this sheet. So you can make fun of me for that later. So Greg Ceccarelli is a co-founder and CPO of SpecStory. It's an intent-first tool that helps teams capture, search, and reuse AI chat history for coding with AI. He previously led product at Pluralsight and data science at GitHub, with earlier roles at Google and Dropbox. And Greg is always sharing his AI workflows with me, and they surprise the hell out of me, especially like the videos that he creates. His full-time, like videos is just like his hobby, but what he creates is like insane. And you'll probably feel that way when you see it. But he has a bunch of AI workflows that I think are very interesting. And so we'll just go right into it. And I'm going to stand up again.
So while I was on the plane last night, I got this idea to make a video on my phone. And I'm going to take you through how I did it, but it kind of requires seeing it. So this is an ode to Brian. Thanks for hosting this awesome event, and I'm glad to be here.
Every trip begins with a gate. Tonight, mine begins at DCA, Alaska Air 7 to San Francisco. The very first thing I'm handed, Biscoff. Sweet and simple. But my brain instantly jumps to Brian Bischoff, Flow State, Berkeley. The cookies become a sign. But I'm not going to Berkeley to talk about code. I'm going to talk about what happens beyond it. The country slides beneath me, from the Potomac to the Pacific. My ideas, too, are in transit, crossing boundaries, waiting to land. And then, arrival. Not just to California, but to conversation, to flow state. Every talk has its small rituals. Mine begins with a wrapper, a reminder of where the journey started.
So are you like, are you like a professional content creator, or do you like spend all day like making AI videos? Like, what's going on?
No, not at all, actually. But I'm trying to learn from you, and I hear that being a content creator influencer is a good gig. So, I'm learning my way around it. But I think what's interesting about that video, and I have so many more videos, and I'm going to show you how to programmatically create one. I think that's actually a more interesting demo. Is kind of like the thinking behind it, because that's not what normally gets shared. Also, by the way, since I'm like having to manipulate a lot of things, if you want these slides, you can get this QR code. Short story, I actually built a link shortener completely agentically because I was tired of paying Bitly. So this is actually my link shortener that I made this this short link from. So
I like how you preempted it with, you can get the slides here.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for, hey, where are the slides?
Yeah. So I wanted to take everyone through like 3 things, but we'll come back to your question. So there's creative production videos. I make a lot of videos. My stack is like VO3 primarily. I use Midjourney for like animating things. But it comes down to like a lot of prompting. I've written a lot about like how to create videos as I've been learning it myself. And at the end of these slides, there's links and you can click on them, and they're like very long form detailed discussions with a lot of pictures, a lot of source code, whatnot to do it. But last night, just to make this relevant, I was sitting on the plane. Hold on, let me pull up some stuff. Well, we'll come back to the intellectual self-excavation later. So I was sitting there, and honestly, like whenever I got the Biscoff wrapper, I was thinking like, wow, my mind was like Brian Biscoff. That's it. And I was trying to figure out like what should I actually do. And I think the hard thing for a lot of people is, how do you come up with ideas? Yeah, so this is like how I started the process. I was like, I want to make a fun video about a guy named Brian Bischoff, aka Dr. Donut. I'm on a plane and I'm eating a Biscoff cookie, which is a similar name to Bischoff. I want a fun idea about how this cookie could turn into the start of a video for Brian. How could we move the letters around? How could they mean something? Let's get creative. Because honestly, I was like a little bit jet lagged. I just got back from Japan, and I was just like, I need some inspiration. So my process for making videos normally, unless I like know exactly what I want to do, is like fairly, generative itself. And so I'll just kind of scroll through some of this so you can get a sense of like the turns here. So at first I was like, these cookie equations were kind of funny. There's this mock documentary. I even uploaded the picture of the Biscoff wrapper that I brought here, right? Because, every great story or talk begins with a wrapper. And I was like kind of going through this, and I didn't really know what was going to come out of it. But you can kind of see there's like a lot of prompting here. And so then I was like on the airplane. So I was like, what if we do this airplane turbulence edit? And I thought that would be funny because it could be like, oh, the Biscoff turns into Bischoff, right? And the like letters mutate. And I tried some generations of that like on my phone, and they didn't come out super well. So let me pull up like VO, and you can see kind of like some of the raw edits. So I use VO3 through Flow. This was the original storyboard with a lot of stuff that like didn't get added in. But you can see there's like a lot of generations. And at first, there were like me sitting, I was trying to like replicate me sitting on the plane. That wasn't like really coming out super well. This was the first one I was going to use that didn't make it in, right? It was like kind of trying to represent, me holding up my phone, getting a text from Brian, then opening this Biscoff cookie. But one of the things that I think is most important to talk about beyond just seeing these like trial attempts is the way that I approach prompting for videos. In some of my attempts in the past, one of the things I find the most challenging, no matter what model you use, is maintaining visual coherence and character consistency through your shots. And some of the, models have capabilities like you can extend a shot, or you can jump to something else, right? But the thing that I found that kind of does the best is creating like a master world prompt. So I'll show you the actual other generations to get like a master world prompt. What do I mean by that? What I found to be super effective is, let's say you have a video and you have a bunch of objects in it. You have characters and you have things that they're interacting with. Instead of just creating like a shot storyboard, it's really effective to say, hey, help me build like an environment-based prompt that specifies things like all the color palettes that you want for all the objects, what the objects are, what sort of should happen from an animation transition perspective, what the tone and the mood is, and then including that sort of world prompt in every one of your shot sequences. Because when you do that, I found even just text to video, like I didn't use any actual images in the generation process for the Biscoff to Bischoff video. And it's super effective. So let me just show you that real quick.
So it might be worth like talking about some of the world attributes that you have, like the key light thing, the purple thing, whatever. Just reading some of those.
And so I prompt this to get this out, basically. And you can see that in this case, there's like objects and props, characters, there's an animation style guide, a color palette. And so in this case, I actually was trying some JSON prompting just to make it easier for me, because the process actually is you establish your world prompt, and then you create your shots, right? And you want those shots to be coherent. And then I just basically copy and paste from like a markdown editor into VO with, the world prompt and then the shot. And then I keep going through that process to get, hopefully an output that looks good. So that's a little bit about it. And you can see here, this compact sort of version makes it really easy to kind of track, because I'm using like the front end UI. I'm not using an API for this. And so I was able to kind of keep track of what I was doing, because if you've done any video gen, you know that the video gen takes a while. And so if I wanted to kind of parallelize it. So I was doing a lot of prompts at once, because the way that I articulated the shot sequences were such that I was able to do that. Yeah.
And how much of this did you write yourself, and how much did you generate with like LLMs? Like,
all of this, all of this is like completely sort of meta prompted, but it was based on like the of the original ideas for what the video should be. It was based on a lot of trial and error, back and forth.
That's cool. Okay, so you have different scenes in these shots, and then what happens? Like, does it get stitched together?
Yeah. So you probably notice, like you can see in some of these cases. So like this is actually the voiceover that happens in the video. Like, the country slides beneath me from the Potomac to the Pacific, yada, yada, yada. If you use VO3, for example, with like VO3 quality mode, you can get like voice like out of it, but it's very inconsistent sort of shot to shot. And so the process is you generate all your videos. I was using the highest quality model. It's like 100 credits per run, using like Gemini Ultra. And then after the fact, once I've downloaded all the videos, I actually cut this together in CapCut. And so like you can see that like, here are the shot sequences in CapCut. And I actually wanted a consistent narration. And so I used 11 Labs to basically just take those voiceover snippets and generate like a consistent voice that then I was able to get like high quality MP3s for and layer them. So like these are the,
that's the middle layer right there. Yeah, that's the audio.
Middle layer.
Okay, and that's the last layer here.
Yeah, that's the last layer. Biscoff.
And how long did this take you end to end?
Like an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. Wow.
Once you've done this enough times, I mean, I have a lot. I've made a lot of AI generated videos. The process is like very, very similar. So again, it's like, what am I trying to make? What's my plan? How am I going to approach this? Okay, I have an idea for that plan. What should I do to create the consistency that I'm going to want shot to shot? Once you've established like that base prompt and, everything that comes with it, then it's just like, how am I going to storyboard this? And then like, how am I going to cut it together? And like, how am I going to edit it? But yeah, I think what's maybe pivot, since we've been on this for a while. I think something that's really interesting is also another type of video gen, but not using just pure AI, actually programmatically doing video gen. So has anyone heard of remotion.dev before? No? So it's an NPM package, and it's also, I got it. And it's also a company. And basically you can use it to like animate frames. So imagine you're building like a website, right? And it's like a Next.js app, and you're running a lot of JavaScript. The thing about Remotion is you can just use like Claude Code to write the code that then produces like pixel perfect outcomes. So I'll show you this video. I made this video for actually that link shortener that was, the genesis of that QR code. And I wanted to make like a product marketing video for this. This doesn't have any sound behind it because this is like running dev mode. And so I was able to actually essentially draw all of this programmatically. And you can see that it's like very high resolution, or at least hopefully is, maybe not on the screen. And then I was going to embed it on my site. I was going to launch this on Product Hunt. But the cool thing about it is the fact that, like, let's say we want to change this, right? So this is this dev studio that's just running locally, right? You see how you can scroll here.
And this editor, this is part of the Remotion?
Yeah, so when you're using Remotion, if you just do like an npm run dev on your source, you get this this editor that gets stood up. So let me actually go into the source here. So I'm in Cursor. This is like a Claude Code session, and embedded in the terminal here. And in this source file directory, you can see that there's like components, and you can see that there's scenes. And so the way that like Remotion works is you have a composition, which is a collection of scenes, and then you have hooks and frames, and you can programmatically edit all of those things. So for example, like this analytics scene this analytics scene.tsx file corresponds to all the code for, let me show you, like this. So everything here in this analytics scene is defined in that one tsx file. So let's do something sort of easy since we're doing this live here. This installation scene, hopefully this is big enough that you can see it. It has these 3 containers here. It's like, the ways to get started is you can, install this DXT. You can just download the package, or you can build TinyDev from source to get the MCP server. So in example source scenes installation.txs, I want to add a 4th container after build from source. And like, let's see what happens, and you'll see it live render, which is really cool to give you the idea of like how this actually works. Before it added like build it from use it from a Docker container. So we'll see if it's like going to do that again.
And are all these files like what? Is there a lot of boilerplate here of like stuff from Remotion, or these are all different scenes?
Yeah, these are all different scenes. There's not a lot of boilerplate, honestly, and it's really easy to navigate around. If anyone's like super interested, like just come up after this, and I can point you to like an entire GitHub repo with all of this source, with all the assets, and with like a walkthrough for how to actually do this, because I have a super detailed walkthrough of how to do this. But it's cool to see it live, and it's always nice to see like what pops out of the LLM here. So, we got a quick start template. So you can see that like, you can see how easy it is to do, right? Like I literally typed one command, and now I have, here, I'll go back, sorry. I have to control this timeline here. You can see that now there's like a quick start template added from that one change. And so you can imagine, you can kind of do anything, right? Because it's just code. And so I think it's just like really interesting.
This is really cool. And so do you have to write, like, are you just interacting through natural language, or are you going in and changing any of the code? Or
I only code through natural language as sort of purposefully. Yeah, so like the startup that I co-founded, it's called Spec Story. And so if you use Cursor or Claude Code or VS Code with Copilot, what we do is we help you store your upstream source, aka your chats, from the code that's generated. And so kind of just by default, I'm trying to push the boundaries of chat-based programming or AI-assisted programming. So I almost like never write code. The tiny.dev application that I built, it took about 3 weeks, and I built it completely 100% agentically because everyone, on Twitter and everyone else is like, you can't do anything real. And it's like a real product with like paying customers. And, I know Claire has done a lot of the same stuff. But like you can build real products completely agentically. And I think it's really about like how much you're willing to invest in the tools and the process to figure it out.
Where do you think people are going wrong when they're claiming that you can't do anything real with, vibe coding or whatever you want to call it?
Well, I think so I have a torn relationship with vibe coding because I think the term, personally, without getting like too philosophical or ideological, the problem is, you can't expect to like one-shot things of like sufficient complexity, right? And so when you're vibe coding, if you like read between the lines of Andre's tweet, right, it's like, you're just leaning into it and like not really thinking about what you're doing. I think that like, when you plan, whether it's to build a product video or to create like code gen, it's all about how you plan, right? It's all about how you specify upfront what you want to do, how you break down tasks, and how you sort of incrementally figure out like, okay, the cone of complexity, like what does this thing need to do? How does it need to function? What are the non-functional and sort of functional requirements there? And I think that a lot of people fail when they're just YOLO vibe coding because they're, not practicing essentially the SDLC that we've, been doing for the last 20 years where, you plan things, you break down, those plans into roadmaps, you break down those roadmaps into tasks, and then you incrementally execute and sort of verify the abstraction layer that you can. So in my case, like it's a lot of, there are tests, but there's also like a lot of interactivity to make sure that like what I'm building, no matter what it is, if it's a video, it's easy, right? Because, you can see what it's supposed to do. But if it's like an actual product or it's like part of like, our business, like actually using it, right, is one way of like verifying an abstraction layer. So yeah, that's a long answer to your short question.
Follow-up question on that is in Spec Story, is there any kinds of aspects of the engineering that lean more towards human tokens versus natural language or vice versa?
Yeah, like for our actual product, I mean, a lot of it is engineered. But one interesting thing that we've been playing with is we have this like editor that's not really like core to our business, but it's actually interesting from like a writing perspective. So what you're looking at is something called Bear Claude. And it actually has Claude code embedded in like sort of a writing surface that purposely minimizes like looking at code. Like the point is just to make you spec and then use an agent to do things because it's like surprising how much you can do like just purely agentically. I'm just trying to go into like something to sort of show you this. But what I was trying to say here is the reason I brought this up is like behind the scenes, like in our repo for this Mac app that we have, like this markdown editor is air gapped, meaning instead of trying to use a traditional PR process, right, and really caring about like the code, we've air gapped it so that like we just completely agentically modify it, right? Meaning it's okay to quote unquote vibe code. We don't really call it that. It's more like we're AI engineering it. But I think one of the challenges is, and something I think a lot of people probably face is like, how do you reconcile intent at the speed by which agents can stream edits, right? Like you can stream edits through agents extremely fast, and that falls down when you're trying to have humans review, line by agonizing line of code. And so without, again, going on too much of a tangent, I think, for the industry to advance, for us to advance, we have to be able to reconcile intent at a higher level, because today code is a source of truth, right? But, if everyone's just using natural language and wanting to get the most that they can out of these agents, perhaps we have to reconcile intent at the spec.
So what does that look like? Like, how do you what does that mean? Like air gapped and reconcile intent? Like what do you do after you make a change to Bear Claude? And like, what is the higher level review that happens? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So what air gapped means is basically there are, so that's a Swift app that you were looking at. And there's just parts of the code base, like, via Xcode, that we just have said, it's okay if we agentically edit this without like traditional code review processes, assuming that we're like, testing it and we have tests in place. And so we actually have this like little project we're working on that we're probably going to open source that allows you to essentially lint something with like hooks that will say like, oh, when an agent is going and editing something that is marked air gap through a config file, like that's okay. If it starts to touch things that aren't marked air gapped, it's going to basically, it's like a linter that says like, hey, maybe don't touch this, right? So that's what like quarantined, like parts of the code base that it's okay to maybe not follow the traditional process. That's what it means. So we walk through sort of like the high level of creative AI video production. What does it look like to take an idea, get kind of, like a fairly robust prompt that you're like feeding into any number of video gen tools. Kind of showed you the programmatic video creation with Remotion. Something that's completely different, similar to what Thomas was showing, is kind of building CLIs for arbitrary things. So one of the things that I've been like doing a lot of is trying to classify data. So what do I mean by that? We have a lot of data related to essentially people's prompts that have opted in to allowing us to basically build rules for AI. So for those that might not know, if you're using Cursor or, I don't know, I guess Claude Code, but like if you're using Cursor, you probably heard of like Cursor rules, right? And Cursor rules are like little markdown files that sit in a special directory. And then like every time you prompt with an agent, whether it's at the project level or global level, it's like injecting like extra context for you, right? And so one thing that we've been trying to figure out is like, where are some of like the problems that people are running into when they're like chatting with agents to get a sense from kind of like a census level of like, what kind of tools are they using? Where do they have friction? Where are there like issues where they're having to like reprompt a lot? And so I have built this CLI tool.
Just to give people context, the Spec Story allows you to share and log all your conversations. So you're basically doing data analysis on like all these thousands of conversations people are having with AI.
Yeah, that's great. I could show you one. It's not too challenging here. So like if you're using Cursor, and I'm in Cursor here, and you have the Spec Story extension installed, like basically, you can determine whether or not you want to like have like AI rules generated for you. But like the default thing is if you're using Cursor like over here, your chat is over here, right? And there's like an autosave functionality that allows you to just get your markdown. And so this is like the full log of your conversation, right? Just autosaved locally. Like most people just autosave it locally. Some people have opted into like having us like generate rules for AI, and we have like a sample of data just to get a sense of like, again, where the friction is. So let me, here, can you grab this for a second? All right, so I have this other Cursor window open here, and this is, I'm gonna make it bigger in a sec, I promise. This is like this analyzed conversation history. Right, so we have all this like anonymized chat history that I'll show you kind of in data grip. I know I'm like all over the place here. Hopefully you're tracking. There's like, I don't know, like 10,000 or so rows. And again, these are like those same chat logs that you saw, right? And so I wanted to kind of, again, understand like what's the friction, yada, yada, yada. Like what sort of vendors are people using? Like, because I think, it's actually quite interesting data. But to do it, the challenging thing about this is these logs can be like 500,000 tokens each or more, right? Because they're extremely verbose. And so I was trying to figure out, like, without breaking the bank, like running this through, an online API, like how can I actually classify these logs? And so I'll show you like the prompt that gives you a sense of like what am I trying to get out of this? One sec. Let me just look down here. So in this analyze file, let me see if I can get to the actual prompt. Sorry, this is like in my face. Where is it? Analyzer. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is kind of like the conversation prompt where the conversation is passed in as a parameter. And you can kind of see this like intent. It's like analyze this developer AI conversation and extract these structured insights. And there's like a lot of structured JSON that I was like trying to get out of it. Like, what is the developer trying to accomplish? Like, what's their tech stack? Like, here's some examples of like vendor technologies that you might find through the sort of like classification of this. You know, can you analyze the complexity of the problem they were trying to solve? Can you like find if they were successful or not? Like, what specific tasks were they trying to accomplish? And then there's like an output format, and you know, there's more here. But what I did is I built like I'm going to show you in a second. I built this sort of interactive like CLI tool, like Thomas, that allows me to parallelize Claude code sessions on my desktop to basically take advantage of the fact that, you know, up until very recently, the Claude 20x Max plan was extremely generous relative to the token cost of just hitting like Opus itself. And so I'll just show you, like, I'll spawn this, and you'll see all the workers running, and I'll show you my like activity monitor, and then I'll show you some of the examples of like the output, plus this other like sort of sidecar monitor system that I built so that I can do this at scale without breaking the bank, because I kind of like looked into the cost and estimated it, and based on like the token cost, it would cost like $5,000 to $10,000 to actually run it over everything because of how many tokens there are. So we'll do a quick test, and let's just do 50. So it's going to take 50 of the like 10,000. And we'll do optimized mode and whatever. We'll do 5 conversations per call. I'll pick, hopefully you can see this, like 8 workers for maximum speed, even though it won't matter because we're doing such little data. And then let me see. I'm going to tell it like, you know, how I want the output data organized. Brian's like, you should have defaults here. I'm like, no, I don't want defaults. I'm going to type everything. Enter to skip. Yeah, we're going to get verbose output here so you can see like what's going on. I don't even know what this means. I can't remember. The F size, okay. No, okay, wait, I think we're ready to start the analysis. So this node terminal over here is going to update. I'm going to be able to see the process running. And so I'm going to say yes. And then as this runs, let me bring up my activity monitor. You can see all these Claude codes. Sorry, I can't see anything. You see all these Claude code sessions? There's like a lot of Claude code sessions.
Perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's perfectly normal, right? You want to get all the juice that you can squeeze out of Anthropic before they cut off this amazing deal. So this is going to run, and the benefit is like, okay, what do you get out of this? So it's running, and it's queuing these batches up for the workers, right? And they've started running here. I'm going to just show you kind of like jump to the end because you're probably all tired of me talking anyway. Here we go. Sorry.
No, I think it's really cool. It's like, you know, AI for data science.
Yeah. So, okay. So it's, okay, you see they're completing here. In some cases, there are errors where there's like malformed characters in these like massive chat sessions. But one of the things that's cool, I'm trying to get to this. Okay. So you can see when I was like first running this, it wasn't actually that recently. It was back in like July. You can see all these batch runs where I like classified like 20, like, I don't know, like about 2,000 to 5,000 of them just to attempt. And in these combined analyses, basically this is the classification by chat log. And it actually works like exceptionally well. So like this pulled out like, you know, this particular chat log was about understanding the assignment logic for business trips and training in an automatic shift scheduling system, right? And it pulled out the sort of tech stack that was used, like all the vendor technologies that were like sort of mentioned, the complexity of like what was attempted to be done, you know, the success indicators about like, you know, through the actual lineage of what happened, you know, like was the person successful? And then like the domain of it, there's like friction indicators where, there might have been, back and forth with whatever the agent was that person was using. And you can see, and so these go on because this is like at the sort of like most granular level. But what's like very interesting is like from an analysis perspective, if like this is like the output of like the 2,000 that were analyzed, you'll see like, how many like unique users, like these aggregations of all of the classification output. And what's I think very cool is, a lot of us are probably thinking about like agent experience these days, right? Like how do we make our SaaS products consumable by agents? And so you can get a sense of the top technologies, but you can also get a sense of like, what are people using and interacting with? Because I think like, most SaaS companies that have been around for a while are going to have to adapt, like not just their documentation, but their APIs to make them more agent friendly. And you can imagine a lot of like vendor selection is going to happen kind of like through osmosis almost, because, people are going to be vibe coding or just kind of like accepting, that the sort of answers back from the LLM in terms of like how to approach a problem or what to try and use. And so when you get into the detail of this, it's just like super fascinating. I haven't done anything with it. I was just like more interested in it to get a sense of, the sort of variety out there.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, thank you, Greg. That was really interesting. Okay, so Claire Vo is the creator of ChatPRD. It's one of the most popular tools for product managers in the space. If you're a product manager, you probably have heard of it or know about it. She was previously a chief product officer at LaunchDarkly. And she's also a veteran product leader. She's been a chief product officer at companies like Optimizely and Color. And Claire also hosts a really popular podcast called How I AI, which is really cool. You should check it out. She talks to a lot of people.
This guy's going to be on it, though, and that guy's going to where did he go? But
yeah, so definitely check it out. It's really interesting. She like interviews people that are using kind of like an extension of this event actually in a lot of ways. So I'll give it over to Claire so she can show all the cool things she's doing in her workflows.
I have all the workflows. So if you want a workflow, I got a workflow. We can like poll the audience and just do it on demand. So we don't want to listen to podcasts and then I make more podcasts and then I just want to generate more machine generated content out of the podcast. So I host this podcast. It's called How I AI. It releases every Monday and we basically do this. We bring somebody on who's cool and smart. They walk through like 1 to 3 workflows. They screen share. They show you how they do their stuff. And it's published on YouTube. And that's great, but some people don't have time. They certainly don't have time to listen to podcasts, as we saw, so they read them through their terminal. They don't have time to watch the podcast either, but because it's a screen share, kind of like very visual step-by-step workflow podcast, it's actually really useful for just people to have the step-by-step in a blog format. And so I'm not going to write these blogs by myself. That does not sound fun. Plus, I would have to watch the podcasts. Not great. And so one of my guests came on recently and turned me on to Gemini Flash and its ability to process videos really, really well. And so I created this How I AI blog generator that takes the raw video of the podcast that we release. I put in the transcript and I put in our show notes, which kind of highlight what tools and links and all that kind of good stuff. And then it outputs a blog post with specially selected screenshots for when interesting things are happening, plus the code snippets that are like shown on the screen. It like reads the screen share and like pulls the code snippets out and embeds those in as like little markdown text snippets. And then it takes that markdown and pushes it to a very specific schema for my CMS and then publishes it to my CMS. I edit in the CMS and then I press publish. So I made this.
So I really like it. It's like,
Great,
it's
thanks.
like an annotated blog post.
Yep.
And I was just telling someone else, I love how Simon Willison does that with all his talks. He creates an annotated blog post so you don't have to like watch the talk. You can
you can read
see it really fast. One question is, why the video in the transcript?
Because I just, why not? So we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it live.
Okay.
You know, when these models can take scientifically a gajillion tokens, that is the actual limit, then like why not dump it all in here? So I put the raw transcript so it knows what we're talking about. I put the show notes, which are written by our wonderful production team.
And have you found that adding the transcript adds
Yes.
makes it better, even though the model
Yep.
it can see the video,
Yep.
whatever? Okay.
Yep. It helps with the content part
Okay.
of it. And so, you know, you see we do all our tool references, links. So when we're looking for like production links, the transcript's not great because it'll like misinterpret when we say Claude, but the show notes are really accurate and I have those in a document. And then you can see here, I just upload the, you know, MP4 of the podcast. And then I do a couple things that just make my life easier, which is I drop the YouTube. I won't go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but I want the actual links to the show in there as well. Pro tip, the Gemini model will take a YouTube URL in and parse it directly from YouTube, but you can't do some of the like screenshot extraction and video extraction stuff. So I upload the file in addition to the YouTube content. So I run this, let's see. It'll start to generate the blog post. And what it's doing, I'll show the...
It says Chat PRD at the top. Is this a tool inside Chat PRD or what's going
Yeah,
on?
so I have a bunch of internal tools that I built for myself. It's like my favorite thing to do. So this is the internal portal for our marketing site where we have a bunch of tools like this that help us create content. I built like a full end-to-end support tool in our app site. So it's just an internal tool. So this is just hosted on our marketing site. You
And
can't
do you have
access
a
it
lot of
because you don't have a
your
login.
prior blog posts as context, as examples or something like that?
Yeah, so that's what I used to create the prompt. So how I generated this is I used AI Studio, Google's like Gemini AI Studio build. Product barely works. I mean, I love you, Google. If there are any Google folks here, like your models are so good and your products are such garbage. So let's like fix that. I like really want to use them. I really want to use them. And so I loved what it built for me, and then it like disappeared. And so, but I had AI Studio actually generate the first version of this. I pulled the code and then I uploaded it into, I think I have it up in Cursor. Yeah, I uploaded it into Cursor, and then I read my code. So I went through and sort of like iterated on it and made some updates.
When you say it disappeared, just out of curiosity, you're talking about the canvas thing? That
yeah,
Gemini?
AI, pro tip, AI Studio does not save your chats by default. Does not save. Like if you vibe code something there and you don't like find this small button, it goes away.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me a lot of times. It's very frustrating.
It's very
a little
frustrating.
bit jank. Yeah,
it's like very strange. So I actually did this twice. But put it in my code, and then you can see here, like, I'm iterating back and forth, mostly on the prompts, and then, you know, tuning how I want it to work. But what you get on the outside is this podcast, which has a headline, a subheadline, and then a blog post in the format that I want, which is 3 workflows, step-by-step, actually outlining how it works. You can see here it's pulling kind of like code. This is my friend Zach at LaunchDarkly who talked about how we deployed agents in enterprise, so Cursor and Devin. And you can see here, not only do we pull the screenshots at the right time, but if you ever do a podcast and try to grab screenshots, trying to grab 2 attractive screenshots of people at the same time is very hard. So it's like always somebody like looking like this or like the wrong loading screen. And so I also have it pull 10 seconds before, you like it, 10 seconds before, 10 seconds after. I can see like, where do we look the cutest? I'm smiling here, so we're gonna pick this one.
And are you saving screenshots every 10 seconds in the video or just around these points?
No, I have it actually identify points in the workflow where a screenshot would be useful. Pair that with the time, pull the screenshot, pull the like 2 on the sandwich side, and then I pick them manually here. And then we also do, you can see, we run a meta-analysis on the screenshots to see if they're any good. So we pull the screenshots and then there's a meta-analysis on it. It's like, is this even a good screenshot? Is it interesting? And if it's not, we just kill it from so this is one that got killed. And so I will pick, let's see. I like this one zoomed in because I can actually read the text. So again, it's like, there's little
can you
things.
edit it right here?
Yeah, well, you can pick which one.
Okay, no, the words. Like
no,
the prose.
I'll show you
Okay.
that in a second. And then, you know, because of our show notes, it will do sponsor thanks and links to the episode, all that kind of stuff. And then I use a CMS called Sanity, which has like this specific schema for my blog posts. So then this publish to Sanity does like a markdown to Sanity schema thing. It'll take a couple seconds to run, and then it's in my CMS. So if I go to, you can see Sanity Studio. If I go into this, our blogs, you can now see, I want to change this. I want to do engineering with AI in enterprise is actually going to be my slug. It automatically selects me as the author. It automatically adds the right keys. It does the title description. And then you can see here, everything, including the code snippets and images, are pre-embedded. And then I go through, edit it, and make sure it looks and works great. And then I publish it.
So I have a question about this. Like,
Yeah.
do you have AI available to you here? So you can help
no,
edit?
this is just like a standard
Okay.
CMS. Yeah, it's like a headless CMS.
Okay. Can you pull it down into Cursor or something? Do something like that? Or
No, I just write in here.
he's right here. Okay.
Yeah, with my fingers.
Okay.
Like normal people have written for decades. And then, so I did this on how to reset episode. You can see here, you get this like nice little, this is actually the blog post on the podcast processor. So if you're looking for content on how this actually gets built and how it works, we're here. You can see here it pulls like prompts out really nicely, lots of screenshots. This is the blog post generator prompt that we pulled from a screenshot. And so you can just see like it's just a really nice little blog generator. It takes me probably 7 minutes then to get one of these blog posts live. I generate it, I pick the screenshots, I go through and read it, I edit a couple of things, publish it live, and then I have a bunch of good content.
Okay, that's really interesting. I
Yeah.
wonder if everyone does this, it will render Tomas's thing, unnecessary, because maybe he
Yeah, maybe.
just consume this.
What I think is, this is for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
I'm writing as a specific author for a specific audience for a specific workflow. But like what he may want out of this blog post may be very different. He may be like, just scrape me all the code snippets because all I want is a prompt library. And so what I think is just the multimodality of content in any one format, being able to translate it into any other modality or any other like point of view on that content is very useful. And so I just think like this is podcast to blog post. You could do podcast to like thesis. You could do podcast to code snippets to podcast. Like I just think that's a really interesting thing we can do now.
That's great. Yeah, so that's a really good point about like different kinds of content you might want to get out of the
Yeah.
raw podcast. Do you do anything about like with like posting to social media? Like
Yeah, I artisanally write all my farm to table X posts. So
Okay,
those
all right.
those are straight from up here, no Claude code.
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I do link these, then they get published. It creates a nice, AI is not funny. It's just not. It's not
Yeah.
that funny. So can't write your tweets, can't post for you.
Okay. Yeah, this is really cool.
Okay, that's workflow 1. Workflow 2 is I am running ChatPRD by myself. And so people are always like, how do you actually do it? And so I just thought I would show my like end-to-end, how I build stuff, all the agents, how do we all play together? And so I have a pretty automated flow across. I have a couple automations end to end that I think make the building of products really nicely. And then I have a couple key places where I like drop in either Devin in something agentic or Cursor. And then I have some like full cycle follow-up things that I think are really nice. And so one of the things that I try to recommend to people is they often are solving like point solutions with AI, but they're not solving like systems with AI. And so they can solve like a single problem, but they rarely take the step back and they're like, okay, if I really zoom out, what's the full end-to-end look like? Design that and then go solve the right point solutions inside of it. And so that's kind of the point of view I took because I have to, because I'm all by my lonesome for the most part. We have a small team, but I do a lot. So We use Linear. I think Linear Agents platform has the potential to be like a very interesting platform for automations. You see a lot of very interesting integrations here. And so one of the things that I'm doing when I'm building products or working on features is I need a couple steps, just like with when I was in larger organizations. I need to understand what's asked of me, like what am I trying to do? I need to define the requirements in a way that I agree that they make sense. I need to have technical specs with sufficient detail that an engineer does not look at me and say like, what are you talking about? And waste a bunch of my time. I need to execute the code. I need to like deploy it in a high quality way. I need to inform internally what we did, and I need to inform externally what I did. And then I need to use that to create more customers for myself. Like that's the big flow. And so what I do a lot is create like a high level task in Linear and then use the agents to actually execute it. So this task did not look like this when I put it in. All I said was add product JSON LD to the reviews page. I live with like a growth marketer, and he said those like 5 words to me. He was like, add the product JSON LD to the reviews page. I was like, what is JSON LD? Like, I don't, he was like, he yelled schema.org at me and then like walked away. And so I put that in Linear and was like, hey, ChatPRD, can you describe what I'm supposed to do here? And we use next, so that's important from an SEO perspective. Can you write it? And so that agent goes in, looks to see if we've documented any projects around this that would be relevant, and then wrote this delightful spec for me here in the dashboard that tells me like what probably should have been communicated to me by my product counterpart, which was I have overall ratings, but I lacked like structured schema org reviews. That's going to show up nicely in Google. It's one of our highest traffic sites. Like, let's make it really pretty and move forward. And so I think that is this is just helpful. If I were going to go code this myself, this would have been helpful. But then what I do, which I think is really interesting, is I do this like agent to agent handoff. So then I assign the task from ChatPRD to Devin. I'm like, Devin, go make this happen. And so Devin will kick off a initiative to explore and basically do a technical spec. So it'll create a space, it'll research the repo, and I'll come back and say, I think I can do this task, and do you want me to? And so it gives the existing code, proposed solution. If it looks good, I'm going to go do it. And I said, yes, go do it.
And is that part where you have it assess itself before it jumps in?
That's actually
you?
Part. No, that's part of
okay.
part of their system. And so 9 times out of 10, it goes medium confidence to good confidence. And then like every now and then, I'm like so mean to it. I'm one of the. I may be a swearer that I degrade its confidence over time. It's like, okay, I really can't do this, but it does this assessment.
How do you do that? You just ask, are you sure?
No, it just fails. It fails me, and I just
I see.
let it know.
Okay.
I'm disappointed.
Okay.
And so you can see here the Devin session gets created, implements this thing, which actually wasn't technically complicated. I just didn't know what, from a product perspective, I was supposed to achieve. Implements that, opens a PR. So that's a nice kind of like open the PR flow. But again, it's like a point solution. That's like, I wrote code. That's not, I got the full value of the process. So the next thing we do with all of our PRs is we have a GitHub action. Every PR that gets opened, we actually have another Devin go, review the code, write a PR description, and make like a QA checklist for it. So we have like one Devin check another Devin's code. It also checks like all of our code. So everybody on the team who writes a PR, me and a couple other engineers, we're very lazy PR description writers. Mine's like, fix this thing. And you actually get like an agent to go in, write the code, write the PR description in a format that we really like. And then we end up with pretty
So a little bit confused, the GitHub action,
yep.
That's being used to create a PR?
No, that's being used every time. So it does two things. When a PR is opened, it does this. It writes me this like beautiful PR description, reviews it, gives me high level things to like review and make sure it works right. So it just like reviews the PR. It does code review, PR description on it opened. When it's closed, then like say it works out great, we love it, we test it, everybody's happy, we do an approval, we merge it.
We have a second merge PR part of this process that opens another Devin that goes and writes docs for the merged feature. And the reason why I have it write docs for the merged feature in the repo itself is that becomes a bunch of context for like a cursor or any of our agents or any of our tools or any of our humans to go through and know exactly what was shipped, how did it work. And so it's like this, you know, if you had like the perfect engineer on your team, they would do this. They would like write your technical spec, they would make beautiful PR descriptions, they would like document their code, they would share it with other people, and like humans just don't have the time and focus often to do that. And so I think automating that away is really useful. And so,
just so people can't see this GitHub action, the first one is triggered when the PR is open. And then it's calling the Devin API to review the description, and then the next one is triggered when
it's closed. It's merged into
and then
base.
it's also calling the Devin API again.
Yeah, to write a bunch of docs, and we get these. And then I have a whole bunch of docs PRs, and then I have Devin consolidate all the docs PRs into one doc PR. It's like agents on agents, agents all the ways down, as they say. Okay, and so we get these like great. Like we're working on an open replit feature that we shipped. Now I have this like lovely document in our docs folder, in our repo, in a components folder that talks exactly how our open and replit feature works. So if any human is working on this, any agent's working on it, they now have this like beautiful markdown formatted natural language partner to the code to be able to understand the features themselves. And then we have it do actually two more things that I think are really useful. So one is I have it put everything in a change log. So we have one like mega change log in ChatPRD. You can read how ChatGPT traffic sends. I also use MCPs for SEO analysis if anybody wants that. But you see here we have this change log, and so every PR that gets merged gets a little change log entry until the beginning of time, and then every week I just copy and paste this change log, put it back into ChatPRD, have it write my weekly newsletter, and then publish my newsletter. So again, it's like, what's that full cycle of taking something that's like really low level, like code, and turning it into something that's much higher leverage, like a newsletter? That's the kind of translation that I'm thinking about. And then the last thing that GitHub action does is, in addition to writing internal documentation, if it's a high quality customer facing large enough feature, it writes documentation in our public part of our docs. And then that gets published to like our help center in Intercom. Oh my God, that was bright, sorry. I saw like people recoil from the screen. But it gets published to our Intercom help center, which again, then extends the leverage of like this, I just wrote code. I did not write this document, I just wrote code. But I turned it through translation into a help document, and then that feeds Finn, our AI agent, that resolves like 70% of our support tickets. So again, like we're starting with literally a linear ticket that had like 5 words in the topic in some instances, into code that's documented publicly, that turns into marketing assets and support assets that also feed like our team of agents. I think that's the end of the virtuous cycle.
Yeah, that's really impressive. It's like an end-to-end workflow.
Yeah.
The question I have is, where is it breaking the most? Like, where are the rough edges? Is there things that like are not working so good yet, and you're kind of still working on that?
I still write tons. Look, I love the idea of like, don't read your code, and like I read all the code. And so I do think like at the level that we're operating, which is sort of this like enterprise software business, like I have to read my code. There's like a level of both, not just quality and implementation. So it worked for the team and it worked for our customers, but there's also just like architectural strategy that I think like you have to get your arms around. And so I would say one of the fun challenges and like we ship a gajillion things a day. One of the fun challenges is you can ship so much, and one of the other challenges is like you can really accrue architectural or tech debt very, very quickly. But we just like vibe scrape all that tech debt off on a quarterly basis and try to fix it. And so I'd say like the biggest challenge is you can build a lot of stuff, and then you have to like.
What does that mean? What does vibe scrape tech debt mean?
So this is what I tell people. I'm like, you're better vibe coding something that's not perfect from a technical or architectural perspective, and then in 3 months, just like sitting down for a week or two, grinding your teeth and rebuilding it from scratch, than never building that feature. And so, I've rebuilt our core chat and chat PRD now like 3 very painful times, like totally zeroed it out. But that process of like getting a product into market, figuring out what works out, taking a step back and saying, okay, now I know what works. What is the like technical product would actually build here? Just like scrapping it all and starting from scratch is actually an affordable, like viable engineering strategy, because the cost of like code creation is so much less expensive than it has been in the past.
It's fascinating.
It's just
Okay.
like red diffs all the time. Just kill it. Okay.
That's great.
I have one
Yeah.
more. My last one is, okay, my life is very good right now. I have no meetings, very small amount of meetings. I have like a Slack of 4 people, and like 3 of them are agents. Like lots of good things about solo founder life compared to like executive life, except I don't have an EA anymore. And that was just like really, really nice. It was like really nice to have an EA. I got spoiled. And so I have to figure out a way to manage my calendar and manage my email. And so I have just created an army of Zapier agents that do all this like nice kind of like administrative stuff for me around the 2 most painful parts of my life, which are my calendar and my email. And so I have what I call my Sunday Scaries agent, which is on Sunday nights, I'm like getting ready for bed and I'm like, ugh, what does my week look like? Like, what do I need to do? And I have work obligations. I have stuff like this I have to go to. I have 2 little boys. I have like a body that I have to keep moving in the physical world for right now until I can be uploaded to a large language model. Like I got stuff I gotta get done. And it's all in my calendar. And so I have this agent here in Zapier Agents, which I actually really like. And it goes through, I don't have one calendar, I have like 10 calendars, but it goes through my 3 calendars. And like, this is what I would tell my EA to do if I had like the luxury of an EA. And I'm like, go through all my calendars. And I was like, look at all of them, because stuff gets put on my personal calendar, stuff gets put on my work calendar. I have podcasts recording on a 3rd calendar. And then I say, get the event names and attendees for every event. So like, tell me what I'm doing. If they're external, go look in my email and remind me who the heck I'm talking to and why I'm talking to them. Like I have like one of those book me calendar links. Like I don't know what we're talking about. And so it goes into my email, which is usually the genesis of those events. And it's like, who is this person? What did Claire agree to talk to them about? And then I have it analyze any opportunities to like consolidate time and do focus blocks. And then something that's really important to me is if I can walk my kids to school, it's like the best part of my week. And so if I'm not due for a meeting until 9, I'm like, put a block on my calendar from 7:30 to 8:30 so I can walk the kids to school. I don't want a recurring block. I want like every day you tell me if I can walk the kids to school that particular day. And then I want you to take all that information and I want you to format it into a Slack message that tells me what I'm doing on a daily basis. Can I drop the kids off at school? What's my morning look like? What's my afternoon look like? Who's picking up the kids from school? Have we agreed on that? Do I have external, evening or social events that I have to go to? And then I highlight anything unexpected, like don't forget these kind of things. And then you summarize them. If there's duplicates, deduplicate them, and then it Slacks me a message. Like what? This is light. And so.
And what's the delta between this and in an EA? Like, because you had both, and you just said that
I would
you don't
feel
have
really guilty telling my EA to like go in all my
your EA wasn't
calendars
doing this?
and like
Okay.
no, she does. She was like an angel that walks among humans. She was great. But like this is like very particular. Like, oh, this is like picky. And like imagine you train your EA on this and then they do it and you're like, no, don't like it. Like change it completely. I want like that. Like I think there's this like iteration of your agent that's like highly, highly appealing. Now, what is not nice is like, you know, my EA tells me happy birthday and knows what to get my kids for, you know, different things. And like, yeah, it's nice to have a human. Like the human interaction is lovely, but this is functionally great. Great. And so what you get, oh, you can see all my friends are agents. So what you get here is an event like this. And so like, again, you can see critical items at the top. Like you have a 7:30 in the morning meeting on Monday with a Copenhagen team. Like, don't forget, because I'll get up at 6 and not look at my calendar until 7:45 and then forget. So it's like, don't forget this. School picture day, very important. Make sure the uniforms are clean and the boys' hair is like combed. Labor Day, kids are home. Your life is going to be like very obvious. You know, you need to think about this. And then it will investigate different meetings I have, look in my email, you know, tell me what I'm doing. There's how AI context, emails, training talks, all this kind of stuff. You'll see things like when it adds school drop-offs, like ones it can do, and then, you know, nice things like Bella's picking up the kids, and my kid has a Think Academy thing this afternoon. And so, like, I just get this every Sunday in my Slack. I read it, and then I know what I'm doing with my life for the next 7 days. And so this is like a load-bearing zap, as I say, in my life, and something that I just think is really nice. I think we'd all, and you know, you all may have different things that you care about, different things you prioritize, but for me, these are the things that I care about. And then what it will say to you as well is it'll give me focus time recommendations, and then it will give me insights on my schedule. So it'll be like, Monday has an early meeting, so you're not going to be able to prepare in the morning. Wednesday is busy, so like, don't add anything to Wednesday. You know, it does tell me have a great week, so that's very, very friendly.
Did you
nice.
prompt that?
No. I mean, you saw the prompt.
Okay.
I wasn't like, be nice to me. So I could.
It's not unreasonable.
Like,
yeah.
Every morning, send me a message. You look nice today. So, you know, like it's a nice kind of thing that you can also see that it reads and drafts responses to all my emails unless it can't. So.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Zapier for this? Like, you know, your other workflow, you kind of built your own tool.
God, I'm sorry.
You know,
I'm gonna blind you all.
And you had integrations with other things. Why did you choose Zapier for this?
I think they've actually just done a nice job of like auth on a bunch of connectors, and God bless it. Do I want to spend my time like grappling with Google Calendar scopes? No, thank you. I would rather just auth it and have my tools. You know, I run a lot of stuff on Zapier, like every sales call gets added to our CRM, an email gets drafted, like a note goes to the team. Like I run a lot of stuff on these automations. Occasionally a Zap will be so high volume, especially our customer related ones, that I'll actually go like recode it because we end up blowing through our like Zap quota, and then it just gets expensive. They're great partners. And so like occasionally I'll peel it back and like just write it out, especially if it feels like it should be part of the product. But for the most part, like it's cheap and easy and fast to make. I love it. And like, that's great.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Sounds reasonable. That's what I'm going for. So I think those are all my workflows. And then if you want a million more every week, 3 workflows right in your YouTube, smash that subscribe button.
I like it. I like the sales pitch.
All right. Thanks, y'all.